Good evening and welcome. Tonight we are going to be attacking a bit of budgeting. Some of you will be watching this live and some people will be texting me. Others of you, you'll be tuning in because right now you're either at the pub having a drink on a Friday or doing something with your families, Friday 7 p.m, maybe watching Hillary Barry, who knows? But whenever and wherever you are watching this from, thank you for tuning in. I wanted to go over budgeting in a bit more detail, just to answer a couple of the questions that I'd had and just show people how simple it is, and also to give a little bit of commentary around why it's so important, why businesses do it, why anybody can do it, and just give people the confidence that they can find their own way to do it, and then what to do off of the back of that as well. Now, if you're watching this, this is aimed at people that don't necessarily do anything about budgeting. Maybe you do and you kind of fall off the bandwagon, or maybe you just want to test and see how could you be doing it differently, what things to think about. This will be very confronting for people that have the mindset that budgeting is a waste of time, that you don't have enough money to budget. Oh, that's all good and well for you. You've got more money than I do and you don't know what it's like. And hey, maybe you're right, who knows, but that's your own things to figure out. So this will be a learning environment for those people that want to really refine how they budget and make it worthwhile for them. So we've got some slides to rip through, we've got a couple of videos, and we've also got a spreadsheet, your favorite to work through. If you don't like spreadsheets, feel free to create something on paper. And a reminder that the Keep the Change podcast, or the audio versions of Money Mail, are now live as well. So if you want to listen to those rather than read, you can do that. Also, if you've got questions about tonight or comments, feel free to email me, luke@keepthechange.co.nz. If you don't want to put your question in the comments because you want to keep it anonymous, I'll read those before I wrap this up at the end of a bit of a Q&A, and read those out and then go through the answers as well. So feel free to hit that email. Let's jump in and take a look at what we're going to be looking at. I will move this to the full screen and make sure that it's working. So what we will be covering. We're good. We are working. So what we'll be covering: how to set up a budget, how to automate your savings as well, and why, because that's one of the big things people talk about budgeting is they don't have any money left over to budget, so therefore there's no point in doing it, which we can understand, but we can look at that in a different way, and how to track your progress every month, and also just a big section on why, and just getting rid of some of the anti-budget type thinking that is out there, and we can help other people around us when we start to hear it as well. So quickly, responsibility, guess who? Yep, it's yours. And like it or not, right now we're the sum of all of our total life choices. Sometimes that's a hard thing to swallow. I've definitely been in positions where that's been hard for me to accept. And our past results are our responsibility, but so are our future results. And if we can accept this, then we can take full responsibility. As always, I'd lead these with the ORBED model, which is ownership, accountability, responsibility, which is above the line thinking; blame, excuse, deny, which is below the line thinking, which we default into. Blame someone else, make an excuse, deny it's happened. Better results come from taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility for the things that we do. We're just not often taught how to do that, and unfortunately our brain likes to default into the red and blame, make excuse, and deny things. So rushing through that because a number of you would have seen me talk about that before. I've got a whole podcast on that somewhere if you do want to dig deeper into that as well, sing out. Now, our savings habits as Kiwis, this is a little bit of an old statistic, but a recent survey shows 20% of Kiwis could last just 1 week or less if they lost their job. Only 5% had enough money for 6 to 12 months. It's obviously a very long period of time. Nearly 60% have savings of less than $500, which is very scary, but it did come from a shitty news article, so who knows how accurate it is. But obviously, as we know, financial literacy is quite a big problem in New Zealand, and we're all here to learn how we can improve that. So let's look at the average income for New Zealanders, around $52,000. It's slowly creeping up now. And if we save 15% of that, we'll be able to save $7,800 in the year. But that $52,000 is going to be taxed, of course, so you're left with about $42,000 without factoring in KiwiSaver and student loans. if you're saving 15% of your $42,000, you're going to have $6,300. So you can't actually save your gross income. You have to save it net once you've paid your tax. What about student loan and 3% KiwiSaver? Well, you would be left with $37,300 in the hand, and to save 15% of that, you would receive $5,595. Excuse me. So people start to lose hope and don't know where to start, and so therefore don't save or don't budget and kind of lose hope and fall off the bandwagon. And you can see very clearly from those numbers how that would happen, because you've got to try and live off that $37,300, let alone try and save a percentage of it as well. But it is, of course, possible, and we're going to look into that and figure out ways that we can go about it and break some of that thinking. So setting up your budget. Now, we're going to be covering just doing some sums and working out what you've got coming in, what you've got going out, and that being specific to you will be different to the next person that's listening or watching. Therefore, make sure that it is accurate for you and you're not just using these spreadsheets based on templated figures. You're actually putting in your own data because you want to make sure that it's accurate and actually useful for you. Then we'll be talking about saving first or saving what you have left over. Now, I'll tell you right now that saving first is a very, very good strategy to do, but often people think that they will save at the end of the month before they then get paid next. But we will match our expenses with the income and the money that we have available, and that is why people find it hard to save money. And 60% of Kiwis don't have $500 saved, and that's sort of why, because they don't find a process to be able to save first. We try and save it last, and I don't know if you've tried that, but I certainly have, and it's a recipe for disaster. Now, you will need the budgeting spreadsheet, so hopefully you have that from about Money Mail week 2, I think it was, or maybe even week 1. If you need a copy of that, I can probably drop it into the comments. I can probably do that now, actually, and hopefully that will show up, and you should be able to make a copy of that by going to File and downloading a copy, or making a copy if you use Google Drive. And this is something that people have been using, and there's plenty of templated figures in there for you to have a look at as well. But if you hate spreadsheets, well then write down something that works for you. Don't let I hate spreadsheets be the thing that stops you from doing budgeting and from taking progress with your finances. Now, of course, you'll need to know all of the costs that you have. A good way to do that is to analyze your bank accounts and your credit accounts and your cards and all that sort of stuff, where the money's coming out of, because there's so many times where you're doing a budget and then bang, that next month comes and you think, oh, I didn't even think about that cost. And that's part of why you do budgeting, which we'll touch on later, is to think about those types of costs that may be coming up. Oh, it's the trip away. Oh, it's the birthday present. All those different types of things. The more you get into this habit, the more you take back control of the entire process. This video was from the 5-figure formula methodology, where we talked about how to save $10,000 clean in 365 days. And people are a few months deep into that process now and making some really good progress, which is great to see. I won't play this video, but if you do want to watch it, I can provide a link to that as well. It is available on YouTube and I can send it, but we're going to watch this next one, which has basically the same information. Okay, so it's time to get into the try and play that one, but we can watch that one another time, or I can send it over, like I say. But this video here is something that's sitting in the Money Mail lessons, which you should have access to if you would like to watch it. But we're going to watch it now, and I'll speed it up a little bit so that we don't chew up a heap of time. But I think that it's very important to start with goal setting as well, as to why you are even thinking about budgeting. How good's the pause there? Right, let's go. In this video, we're going to figure out how to use this meaty template that is the financial position. Now, financial position is what your financial position is at the end of a time period. So it might be the end of each month, it might be the end of a year, but it's often what a bank will ask you for when you go for lending. So it is a very smart practice to get into and understand. Also within this template is some goal setting and also a budget / a cash flow to see how your pay flows through your expenses and what's left after that. So I think it's a very, very good habit to get into thinking about this stuff on a monthly basis, to be able to create a good habit that you can stick to and keep your mind thinking about money, and keep your mind on how you're going to produce more savings and also decrease some of your liabilities like credit cards, etc. So I'll share my screen and we will rip into it. Right, starting with the goals tab. So in here, you want to put things that you want to achieve over the next 30 days, 90 days, 1 year, 5 years, self-explanatory. These might just be things like decreasing a credit card limit. And then 90 days, it might be decreasing the actual level that you owe on the credit card. 1 year, it might be that you don't have that credit card anymore. 5 years, think big with this sort of stuff. This is about what do you really want to achieve in the longer term in terms of finances. So it might be a new home. It might be a second home. It might just be that you're debt free. It might be financial freedom. Whatever it is that you want to come up with, be brave and write it down. Each time you achieve a goal, especially every 30 days, make a list of it so you can go back and actually see, right, wow, over the last 12 months, I've done X, Y, and Z, and give you a lot more confidence about the progress that you're making, because it is very easy to overlook the progress that we make, especially in a financial situation as we get bogged down with the next problem that comes into our life in terms of a dentist bill or things like that. So navigate those and be proud and celebrate the fact that you're working through them. We'll move into the cash flow, which is designed to show where your money goes when you get paid and then how far it'll last you. So these figures are all templated, made up figures. So you need to go through and edit them for what is realistic to your life. At the moment, it's set up to be weekly, that you can change that if you want to, but getting granular down to per week gives you a great way to actually think about it a lot more, and will challenge you to, rather than just think, oh, what do I roughly spend on the gym per month and things like that. So start with a week, and as you progress and get a bit more savvy and understanding your numbers a bit more, then maybe you can advance to a month and do it at a higher level. But start small and then go from there. So all of these costs will tally up, and they're into sections. So personal bills, living, leftovers. So go through and add all of the things that you pay for, and hopefully you would have done the exercise first where you're analyzing your expenses, and then you bring those over here so that you actually know what these are. Then you want to add in your living expenses like rent, food, fuel. You can edit these and put in whatever you need to add into here. So that might be extra food, and you can just populate any of these columns and they will all become like the previous. So, and then the numbers will change down the bottom as you see. So from here, then you've got leftover. So these are the things that you're going to use your extra money for. So it might be that you want $250 a week to spend on whatever it is that you want to spend it on. You might be repaying a credit card, so that's $250 gone. You might be saving in terms of bonus bonds and sharesies, or you might just want to change this and make it savings. That's fine. You do what you need to do and edit it for yourself. So you can, of course, with a spreadsheet, drag it across. We won't turn this into a Excel or Google Sheet tutorial. But this is all customizable, and make it your own and have some fun with it and make it something that you can understand, because it is no use not understanding what it is that you're doing. So what this will do is it'll actually tally what you've got left out of the week. So because you're getting paid $4,000 in this week and then paying all of those expenses, and then you're not getting anything for those future weeks, obviously it's going to look a lot healthier. So there's $2,600 left at the end of that week. Now, the total of those expenses is $1,396, and the next week it's $1,320. So this will show you what it is that you've actually got left. So a negative is, of course, when you don't have any income, but you do have expenses. So be mindful of that, but you can also change that if you don't like the way that that's calculating. But find that it's a good way to keep a close eye on what it is you actually have left over to spend. Now, this is something that will track how much money you're going to gather. So if your opening balance is $2,600, you might change it to $5,500, or whatever your balance is. It might only be $500. It will then show you what is going to be left over up here and then added to the starting balance. So it will show you whether you're going to end up running into overdraft or you need more money. So in this instance, you're spending more than what you're earning. So we need to change some things up here. Now that can be another exercise which people need to go through individually, but hopefully people aren't spending more than what they are making. But this is a good way to see if that is actually the case. Now, this here is obviously the number you want to keep an eye on to see, right, am I actually staying afloat? So let's say all of a sudden your income was actually $8,000 and you received $8,000 that week and $8,000 in that week. You'd quickly be able to see, right, what extra money do I actually have? And then you might want to change your savings to be increased, or you might want to pay down a credit card further. Now, I've left in this credit card payment here and put it in red so that you can see that you can build that sort of thing in for yourself as well, where you might have a $15,000 credit card that you start with, and you decide you're going to start trying to pay that off at $250 a week. So this is calculating $250 off the week before if you are making that, so you can see that it's coming from there. So say you didn't make a payment in that month, then quite simply it wouldn't calculate it for you. But
build those sorts of things in as well. Depending on what your goals are, you might actually be trying to build a $5,000 nest egg, so you could change that to increase towards $5,000. But you can see what the balance of your credit card is going to be over each of those months. So hopefully that is nice and simple. But like I say, use it how you want to use it, and make it about yourself, your situation, and how you can best understand it so that you don't not use it because it's too hard. Now, if we jump over to the position, which is what you have on hand. So this is what they call a balance sheet in accounting terms, and you can enter your assets and your liabilities, and then it'll calculate for you the assets minus the liabilities. So your home, for instance, in this example, this person doesn't own a home, they don't have any other property, but they have an $80,000 car, they have cash and term deposits of $58,000, shares in companies and sharesies for $40,000, they have their KiwiSaver of $30,000, which a lot of people forget, and then other $2,000, so a bond on a property, so they're obviously a renter. So then we go down here, this isn't going to apply, they don't have a mortgage on a home or any other property, but they do have a car loan of $65,000, finance cards of $2,500, personal loans of $20,000, and credit cards of $15,000, plus other of $20,000, so they might want to do, you might want to write down what that is if that was you, but basically that will give you a total of those liabilities, and this will then tell you what your assets minus your liabilities are. Now, the reason it's important to do this is that you want to track how this is moving, and hopefully it is increasing month to month, and that's why these months are here, and you can change all of these to be however you want them to be, but you want to keep an eye on this each month to ensure that this figure is increasing. So you're moving the needle somewhere, you're decreasing some of your debt, or you're increasing some of your assets, and you're not just staying the same or going backwards, because that is not you accumulating any wealth. So this is also known as your net worth, which is a simple calculation of basically what you are worth as a person as such. Now let's ignore whether you can calculate someone's financial worth that simply, and just keep it to a basic accounting. That will be your net worth. So go through and track this. So you might, this might stay the same the whole way through. Then all of a sudden at the end of April, you've got $60,000 because you've saved $2,000. Your shares are still the same, $40,000. You might want to even track what their actual market value is. Your KiwiSaver is $30,000. Again, you might want to bump it up to $32,000 because it's increased in its market value. Your bond's still the same. So you've increased your assets by $2,000. Now you've actually paid off $1,000 of your car loan in that month as well. You've got your finance cards down to $2,000. Your personal loan hasn't changed. That's still $20,000. And your credit card is still $15,000, and you're going to address that at some stage. This $20,000 is still here, your other debt. All of a sudden, your assets minus your liability and your technical net worth is $91,000. So you know you're moving in the right direction. Now, this is a great way to be able to keep a track of whether you are, in fact, making any progress. So do all three of these and do them regularly, whether that be weekly, monthly, but I'd say at least do it monthly to start learning more about this and actually figure out, okay, am I making progress? And if someone was to ask me that, how would I justify that? This will give you all of the tools you need to be able to justify that. I hope it's really simple. If not, you can ask questions, but I'm sure that you can also change it to suit your needs. All the best. Welcome, team.
Hopefully that was easy enough to understand. We will actually jump into that spreadsheet as well. I will just move from this screen over to the spreadsheet myself and make sure that is coming up. So like I said, you can get access to that in the comments, and you should have it from one of the earlier Money Mail lessons. Of course, this is now updated. I try to keep this updated for people so that whenever they download it or get it, it's a bit closer to the date that it is. Now we've gone past this week and we're into this next week, and I've got some figures in here for people to factor in and see how it moves based on rent and things like that. But of course, like we talked about in that video, you need to go through and actually look at these things that you're paying for via you analyzing your bank account and seeing what it is that you pay for. You might not have insurance. For some of you will. Some of you are paying down a credit card and those types of things. And you want to make sure that it's really, really accurate to all of the things that you end up paying for, because if you know 90% of the things that you're going to be paying for in the upcoming month, what some people will actually do is they'll go ahead and they'll prepay it. So say you're getting paid monthly, for instance, they will pay those things in advance so that they don't have the temptation of spending that money. For some of you, obviously, you'll need to factor in, there probably needs to be a line these days for afterpay. And that might be the first thing that you need to factor in. You're like, oh great, I've actually got $25 that I need to pay towards that. And it's all those types of things that you need to think about for yourself to work out, okay, what do I have coming in and what do I have going out? Because ultimately, we want to be tracking, okay, am I going to run out of money? And it looks like in this week we're getting caught pretty short. So we know, okay, what are we going to do to be able to solve that? There's no point getting to the point where your bank account is bouncing in terms of direct debits or bills trying to go out, because then you're under stress, and you don't want to be under stress. And part of budgeting is trying to preempt the things that we have coming up so that we can avoid getting ourselves into positions that we don't want to be in. So if we know with a couple of weeks notice that we're going to be short for money, we've got to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to solve that? What can I change up here that's going to allow me to avoid getting into that situation and things like that? So that's an example of why budgeting is an important thing for everybody to do. And this is exactly why businesses do it. They're tracking their total income and then the bills that they have coming up. If you are on a salary, there's a high chance that your employer is budgeting, going, can I afford to pay my staff wages? If not, maybe we need to get more people through the door. Maybe we need more sales. What are we going to do in this business to be able to get more money in to ensure that we can pay the lease and the employees and the different costs that we have, the power, and it's no different for you and I. So they've got to work through it, and so do you. And you've got this tool here that you can use. And then, of course, we talked about the position there as well, which there's an example of like a whole year of it growing from assets and then liabilities decreasing. And then we're into the 2022 financial year now. And you can start to track your financial position. I had to apply for some borrowing for my business the other day. And one of the first things that the bank sent over was, oh, hey, we want an updated financial position from you. Now, that's easy for me, and it took me about 5 minutes. A, because I'm an accountant. B, because my writing's very messy, so I wrote it out very quickly. But C, because I do it every month. So I knew what the answers were because I actually practiced that. And they said, oh, thank you for returning this to us so quickly. Well, the unfair advantage that I have is that I actually do that all the time. So I didn't get stuck on like, okay, what assets do I have? What liabilities do I have? Most people, when they go to borrow and the bank say, hey, we need your financial position, you're like, what do you mean? I got $80 in my bank account. That is my financial position. But they want to know, what do you got in your KiwiSaver? Do you have life insurance? What debts do you have? Do you have any afterpay bills? Do you have any credit card bills? Are you expecting any inheritance? Do you have any term deposits? Do you have any shares? Do you have a Sharesies account? All those types of things make up your financial position, and there's no reason why you can't track that as well and get in the groove of understanding that. Right, I'll stop that and pull the slides back up. Any questions? Sing out. No question is a silly one. Now, automating your savings. We talked about that in the video of saving first, and a way to be able to do that is actually to automate what it is that you're saving. And how do you do that? Someone asked me, how do you automate your savings? Well, literally an automatic payment. That's as simple as it can be. Or going in as soon as you get paid, and bang, that's the first thing you pay, is you pay yourself and you automate some of your savings. So you go in there and you are the cog that makes that automation, and you go, right, I'm going to transfer 10% or 15% into a savings account or into a Sharesies account or off to somebody that I trust. And you are effectively building the habit of saving first rather than saving last. And because you've budgeted, you can budget, okay, how much can I actually save? And there may be times where you can't save anything, but you know that because you've budgeted, and you go, okay, well, what can I do differently in the month ahead so that that's not the case for me next time? Now, in the 5-figure formula, we talked about a way to automate our savings and then go a step further with it. And you'll see it on the screen here. We talked about using Sharesies and a DIY order, which basically means that, say you set up an automatic payment to Sharesies, for instance, or whoever you use, and that's what you use to save some money in, then that money goes to them. Then you have a DIY order that basically buys, on this example, 2 funds every single week. and you aren't having to remember to do it. You're not leaving it to chance. You've automated it via an AP, and then they are distributing it into 2 different ETFs or funds, and voila, before you know it, you've actually saved money that week, and you haven't even been involved in the process. So that's what a number of people that were working through the 5-figure formula were doing. Excuse me. In the past, I've literally paid down a massive credit card via every time I got paid, I would go in and I would transfer money across to my credit card to decrease the balance, and well, actually increase the amount that I could borrow again. But I would ring the bank the next day and say, hey, I want to decrease this balance so I can't spend that $500 that I've just paid off my credit card. They would say, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm pretty bloody sure. Been calling you for the last 13 weeks and I've still got a fair way to go on this thing. So yes, I am sure. And so that's, another way that you can use or think about saving is paying down debt, because not all of us are on savings goals. Some of us, for instance, are, trying to pay down debt or pay down credit card debt or pay down an overdraft. And it's very sad to see. I saw an example today of somebody basically using an overdraft to pay down their loan, which is just very sad when you think about it. So their overdraft was getting bigger, but their credit card was getting smaller, which you're just swapping one loan for the other. And, a lot of us fall into those type of habits because we don't understand what sort of interest rates we're paying and things like that. So it may not be about saving for you. It might be about paying down debt, but these principles still work the same. Now think about, do you trust yourself to do this? Because often if we've been stuck in bad habits for a long time, like we can't trust ourselves to do these types of things. So another tactic, for instance, is give money to somebody that you really can trust. And you need to make sure that you really do trust them before you apply a tactic like this, because there's obviously the risk that, you don't get the money back. But maybe it's your parents, or maybe it's a sibling, or someone that you really, really trust. And you say, hey, I'm going to start transferring you some money, and I want you to be very, very questioning if I am to ask for this money back, and make sure that I'm not just doing bad things with it, because here's a goal that I'm trying to achieve, and by transferring it to you, it means that I can't touch it, and that's going to be good for me, and also gives me a form of accountability, because you know that I'm trying to save, and you're going to start asking me, hey, how you going with that? Hey, you didn't transfer me any money last month. What's going on? How's everything at your end? And it builds in an extra layer of accountability, and it's something that we don't really get taught about with finances too. However, it's something that businesses do all the time. Often, they've got an accountant, they've got someone that can see their finances, and they feel like they've got a layer of accountability. They've got the IRD to answer to, where they need to pay their tax, and that can be the thing that keeps them on track with their finances. Remember that you're forgetful as well. There's a high chance that you're going to have heaps on in your life, as we all do. And so when you're supposed to be thinking about budgeting and saving, you're going to forget to do that. So you want to find ways where you can automate and remind yourself as well as possible, so that you can practice better habits. And of course, saving first is such a great way to get in the habit of paying yourself first. And it's a great feeling to know that, okay, I've been to work for the last 4 weeks, or the last fortnight, or the last week, and I've got something for this. I've paid it. And to be really dreary for a second and think about it, for a lot of people that live paycheck to paycheck, and for a lot of people in general, just by choice, by spending all their money, you effectively go to work for free. And you'll say, well, no, because I've been paid. But you go to put your card in the ATM, or you log into your internet banking, there's nothing left. So what was the point of going to work for that time? Well, hang on, Luke, I was paying for food and accommodation and things like that across the time. Yes, of course, I get that. But if we're not using some of this money for our own good and for our future, and rewarding ourselves, then what's the overall point, or what's the next step, or the next strategy that we're going to take to try and change that? And that can be a massive wake-up call for people, but we've been kind of conditioned to go and just do that. It's normal, and that is how it is. But you then envy the people that don't live like that, or that have been able to save some money in their last week, or you start to compare yourself and go, well, I haven't got any money saved. And you've just got to get on the path and get started. And of course, out of sight, out of mind, don't leave it to chance. A great way to protect your money is by not being able to see it directly, because humans will love to find a way to spend it, whether you keep logging into your internet banking, you're like, oh, I got $1,000 there. Maybe I can buy those new shoes, or yeah, I can come to that because I've got $1,000 there. I was transferred out of my savings. Like, who hasn't done that before? Right, we will talk now about why budgeting. If I just go back, actually, one that Sharesies, for instance, like not all of you will be using it, but I'd imagine some people will. You might choose to use Sharesies rather than save, or use some form of investment vehicle that isn't just saving with cash and interest rates, because they're so low at the moment. And that's why we've seen such a big increase in the likes of using Sharesies. But, do your own research and make sure you're comfortable to do something like that. Of course, if you're in KiwiSaver, that's what's happening with your money. It's going into the market somewhere, so you should understand how that works. Now, why budget? Well, it's no good budgeting if you don't have any money left over. I see this on Keep the Change posts all the time, and I see people liking it. And that's why I put the source there, Facebook comments. And I'm not having a go at you if that's what you think, but I want you to think differently, because how long do you want to accept that methodology? Like, what needs to change for that not to be the truth needs to be the question for yourself, because I see people that comment that, and then so many people like it, and I think, okay, well, how's life ever going to be any different? What can we do to change that? Right? So by commenting that, are we just accepting that that's how life's going to be? Well, it's no good exercising if you're going to die anyway, surely. It's no good eating well if you're going to die. What's the point? It's no good learning to swim if you live near the mountain. It's no good working if you're just going to get taxed. It's not really any point in going to church either if you don't believe in God. There's no good being nice to people if people aren't nice to you. It's no good learning if you've already been to school and you didn't like it. Where does that stop? Where does that stop for people? So grow up. And that is a bit of tough love, but sometimes we need to hear this stuff. And just because other people like our comments and go like, oh yeah, see, like I don't need a budget, what's the point of that? It doesn't mean you're right. And it doesn't mean that other people agree with you or believe you. Yes, you'll find that people will. You can always find people that will back your argument up, but how long do you want your life to go on like that? Because the point of budgeting and getting in control of your finances is to go on the journey and actually embrace it. And yours is going to be different to the next person. Yours is going to be different to mine, and mine is going to be different to the next person. So you got to try and break that mindset, if that's the mindset that you are stuck in, of what's the point of all this and I don't need to do that. And I'd imagine if you're watching this, that's not how you're thinking, but you will have people around you, and that's the thinking that they will be stuck in. And if you can break that thinking yourself, then my challenge to you would be, can you break that thinking for somebody else? Because I'm not going to solve financial literacy in New Zealand. The government's not going to. All these other people working on financial literacy aren't. Like, it's going to take a collective effort of all of us to go, oh, sorry, mate, like, just because you don't believe in budgeting doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. Or, hey, like, I can give you a hand if you like. Hey, I can point you in the right direction. Don't talk like that. Here's a different way to think about it, because we do need to break that mindset and then break that victim mentality. Otherwise, we just get stuck there. And I've been there before, where you feel stuck, and it's not a good place to be. So I think if you can get yourself unstuck and help somebody else, I think that's ultimately, that's the real beauty of getting in control of your finances and understanding things like budgeting. So ask yourself, why aren't you budgeting? Why aren't you actually doing it? What's the real reason for you? If this is you that isn't doing it and doing it consistently, like, why is it that you're not doing it? If it's because you don't know how, well, there's enough resources online, and by the end of this, you can't really say that you don't know how, because there's so many people willing to teach you. So be really honest with yourself if you are a non-budgeter, and go like, why am I not doing this? What is it in me that thinks that this isn't a good idea? And only you have that answer. And maybe it's because you don't want to be helped. Well, You know, I'd imagine you're probably not watching this if that is you, but you'll have people around you that'll be like that. And it's very hard to help people that can't be helped. But if that is you, you need to remember that that's on you. So like, stop commenting on people's shit and own that for yourself and just accept it that, yep, life's probably going to be pretty tough in terms of finances, and expect to be one of those statistics. And it is what it is. And if that's what you're comfortable with, then hey, it is what it is. But, you know, if you want to do something about it, there are ways to get yourself out of those types of ways of thinking and improve it. Hard-hitting stuff there. Okay, why budget? Right, humans, we love progress. We all love tracking our progress. You know, that's why people check what's their share balance worth, what's my house now worth, how much debt have I got left. And when you start to, get a roll on with some of those things, it's a great feeling because you start to feel more in control, and we like that. There's nothing worse than your finances spiraling out of control than anything in your life spiraling out of control. And, you know, this is no different. Getting in control of it is a great feeling. You can learn more about your finances, and the more that you learn about it, the easier it's going to become. Each month, budgeting gets easier. Doing the first budget's usually the hardest. You break the back of 80% of it. Then it's just rinse and repeat. Oh, yep, did all that work last month. Just need to refine it for the next. You can read, as we talked about, you can reteach others as you grow yourself, and you can help other people. You can prepare for emergencies and future costs, and you might start building in emergency funds and preparing for things that you've got that are coming up in 6 months' time, and they're not going to, they're not going to catch you out. They're just going to be something that you've actually already expected, and you can go and pay for that. You might understand that some months are bigger than others, and this happens where there's rent payments, for instance, that you might have 5 in 1 month rather than 4, and that can catch people out because a payday hasn't fallen on the right date, and they miss that rent payment, for instance. So you start to look and go like, oh, wow, this month is actually a lot different to last month. How do I need to work my way around that? You, of course, take ownership of your finances and accept responsibility for them, as we talked about right at the start, and you can pull yourself out of the statistics, which aren't very pretty, which we're just talking about quite heavily. And remember, it's not too late to start. It doesn't matter what age you are, or what income level you are, or what literacy rate you have for finance. Everyone can start having a crack at budgeting, and it's never too late. And just finally there, don't leave your future in the hands of other people. You want to own it for yourself and start taking care of your own budgeting, your saving, your KiwiSaver, and all those types of things, your employment, what you're going to get paid, if you can ask for a raise, all those types of things. The more that you can get back in control of your hands, the more you're going to feel in control of it, and the more chance you've got to change the trajectory of your life rather than leaving it in the hands of other people. Now, a quick way to remind yourself as well is that you will forget to do this because we just get busy, right? So set up a calendar reminder, do it now, set it for your payday, or maybe a couple of days before payday, and start to build a routine for yourself. Like, right, day before payday, I need to do my budget for the next month, or the next week, or until my next pay cycle. And then, you've got no excuses not to have a look at it. So you're not just sort of getting paid and it's like, yeah, it's payday, and then it's all gone. You're actually then controlling where it goes to and getting on the front foot for it. So a calendar reminder can be a great thing to remind you to actually do that, and something that we encourage clients to do, and we encourage people to do during the 5-figure tracker as well, and definitely something that I've got set up on my calendar too. Now, what if it all goes wrong? Well, shit happens, right? Sometimes we have months that don't go as well as the other ones, but we just have to accept it at times that it is what it is. But that does not mean that you stop. It means that you take that lesson and you learn, and then you get back on the horse. I had a number of times where I was trying to make financial progress, and I'm just getting bills left, right, and center. I'm like, oh, wow, like this just feels almost pointless. But you have to zoom out, and you will have storms, and then you'll have other times where it's just simple, and you look back and you think, wow, I actually saved a fair bit of money last month and was able to, and did it pretty easily. Like that felt pretty good and pretty simple. But then other times it will be hard, and that's just how it is. Sometimes you have things that pop up, and bang, all the money that you put aside that you thought, okay, that's going to be my disposable money, already done some saving, but I've got some cash left over. A couple of flights for an emergency, gone. You know, you're back to square one. It's like, oh, right now I'm up against it for the rest of the month. And so these things will happen, but as they happen, you can start to put things in place to make the financial blow or the impact of them less disruptive of your life. And that simple progress calculation at the top there, that's that financial position that I'd strongly suggest that you work through once a month to try and control your thinking around, okay, what progress did I take and make in this last month? Have I, have I actually got closer to increasing my assets and bringing down some of my debt and those types of things? But that's all based on your goals that are yours and yours alone. Wrap up, right. Don't want to keep you here all night. I know you've got things to do and enjoy your weekend. Do you have your budget ready to go? That's obviously step number one, and you'll need to spend some time doing that. And we've gone over why budgeting is important. You know exactly whose responsibility this is. And the calendar reminder, if you haven't done that, then go and set that up. That's your 4 pieces of homework. One's pretty meaty. The other are quite simple and basic and shouldn't take you too much time to get through. Now, remember that the stats from the start, recent survey shows 20% of Kiwis could last just 1 week or less if they lost their job. Only 5% have enough money for 6 to 12 months. 60% of Kiwis have less than $500. So what are you going to teach your children or your friends, your family, the people around you, or even just yourself? You know, that's why it is so important to get in the habit of getting some budgeting done. Right. Any questions? Looks like been very quiet in the old comments, which is no surprise on a Friday night. Probably a silly time to go through a bit of budgeting as people head into the weekend, but wanting to squeeze this content in before the weekend or the week ends for me, and quite busy with, productive at the moment with a lot of accounting stuff on the go, which is good, helping clients budget as well. Just work through a number of different budgeting templates and things with clients who are predicting their income for their business and their expenses, and very, very similar process to what you guys can model individually as well. I hope you have found that valuable. If you have any questions or want to replay or want any of the templates or the videos that we talked about during the slides, more than happy to take you through that. Heather says that she forgot this was happening. We'll have to rewatch later. Not a problem, Heather. You'll be able to find it on Facebook, and I'll try and get it on YouTube over the weekend as well, so you can listen in a faster speed if you want to do that, or stop and start and go and do things. So thank you for tuning in, and to those people that sent in questions around budgeting that allowed me to cover off some of the things that we spoke about that I've kept anonymous. Look after yourselves, take this stuff seriously, get in control of your finances, and it will be very rewarding for you. Have a good weekend and look after yourselves out there.